supposedly a short one. There are two speakers with us. We have Aditya and we have Pranati. And I am Dushyant from C, and my colleague Milind is here. So the panel will be four of us. I'm quite excited to meet both of you actually. And I mean, the school, we constantly have these dialogues about material experiments in this range which actually spreads from the question of what is vernacular to what is the most technologically advanced thing, and where do people sort of lie within this whole spectrum of things. To introduce both of you, I'll just give a brief background. Pranati is from Abari. She's joining us from Nepal. So Pranati is an architect by discipline, and she has worked at Abari specializing in rammed earth and bamboo construction. And after her PDC in 2019, she moved towards ecological landscape design. And she owns a farm that she's sort of co-design and inviting them to experience holistic sustainability, natural building, interiors, food, and clothing. So there's a new way of life that you're experimenting. Welcome, Pranati. And the other panelist is Aditya. Aditya, we've been in touch for a while now. And he's from Unarshala Foundation based in Bhuj, Gujarat. He also leads another organization called Abari, which he's a founding director of. Having its core focus on participatory planning, relying on the inherent wisdom of the people, especially the idea of the commons. The word Abhat comes from a collective practice in North Kutch, and can be translated to coming together of the people for common good. He has extensive experience in appropriate construction technologies and inclusive planning of the built habitat. He's worked on housing for the urban low-income groups, as well as traditional housing practices of the rural communities across India. He's also been involved in various studies and documentation projects of urban space, public spaces with a focus on informality. And he's also in the same frame taken 2 studios at sea. So welcome Aditya and Pranati. We will start with your presentations and then take the discussions ahead.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time and attention. We're at the fag end of this conference, so whoever is here, thank you so much. And thank you for the invitation. It's been a really lovely 3 days of learning so much. And I'm happy to share some of our work here. So Abari is based in Nepal, and it was founded by Nepal and me, my husband and I. And we're an interdisciplinary practice, and it's a problematic word I've noticed in the past few days. So what I mean by that is it is originating from this idea of gas bas kapas in Nepali, which is roti kapda makan. You know, that's what we mean when we say interdisciplinary. And over the past decade, we've created a few systems and a different language, which I'll show you in the following slides. Originally, we started off with research and documenting. There's over 80 ethnic groups in Nepal, and there's just so much indigenous wisdom. A stone's throw away, you know, you stumble and you see something beautiful there. So we had a lot of, the foundation of our work is documenting all this work. And Nepal has had a history of this sustainable living practice where you grow your own food, you do everything in the context of your farm. And right now it's overrun by, you know, cheap imports, and also this idea of not valuing what you have, you know, which is pertinent everywhere. And also this idea of cyclicity. So every year this facade would change, because the monsoons wash it away, or just the surface. And so during the festivals it's repainted. So we wanted to set up our practice based on these principles. And in the heart of hearts, we are both gardeners. So can I just, yeah. So the crux of our work starts here, where we bought this really cheap piece of land, and we really wanted to grow this material that we fell in love with, which is bamboo. So we wanted to have this autonomy over, sourcing it ethically. So we thought the best way was to grow it. And so we got hold of this land, which, as you can see over the years, in the next image, you can see that the floods are consistently eating into the farmland. And when we intervened with growing bamboo, you can see significant restoration of this degraded land. And it's also the reason why we use the material. It's not just for just because we think it's pretty or something, but it's an ecological intervention. And it's one of the most densely populated cities as well in South Asia. So I want to just jump to the project where we had a COVID baby, which was our little house in the context of Kathmandu city. And the whole idea was to challenge this, the cobbler walks barefoot. So we wanted to live in a house that we were built with the materials that we were trying to push. And of course the earthquake really helped us in a way where our I wouldn't call it activism, but we were really involved in getting rammed earth on the map in terms of getting it regulated and getting the government to understand that it's a safe building material in the context of earthquakes. And so when COVID hit and we didn't have projects, we thought this was the best thing to do, and we built this beautiful house in this urban context where, there's ugliness everywhere, and the only space where we could have beauty was the roof. You look left, you look right, there's ugliness. So the idea was to have this little, expression of, okay, we can just rest here and look skywards and we'll be okay. I don't want to get too much into the technicality of it, but I'll just browse through some pictures. And we've had so many interesting collaborations over the last few years where, other people doing vernacular architecture in other parts of the world. We always try to connect with them and collaborate with them. So we had a Boveda making workshop where we learned how terracotta tiles are used to make these structural arches without any steel or cement, and they used gypsum. And we wanted to convert that into the language of, using the language of bamboo, So over the years, we've just been fascinated with bamboo arches and domes and vaults, and how to do it structurally without any cement or steel. So this is a project, this is a public building. It's a canteen in a orphanage in Pokhara. And yeah, we've just, going back to the house, the reason we built that was because after a long time of dealing with government bodies and clients, we just wanted to be clientless for a while. And I know it's a big privilege, but when we did that, it was a proof of concept for so many things that that was a stepping stone in many ways for clients to come to us rather than us trying to find clients. And so when we started doing this arches with bamboo, we started getting more and more public building requests who wanted to use this material because of this demonstration. Can we play this video? Okay. No problem. So this is just showing the technique of how we've used. Oh, okay. No, it is a video, but that's okay. He's just plastering it. Um, so this is actually a new language, because this was, as far as we know, in our context, it was not done before, where you're using earth and bamboo to build, these curved surfaces like this. So yeah, I think now we can stick to the slideshow. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, this is the finished project, and I am personally more drawn to the softer side of architecture, which is like the pigments and the colors. I'll get more into it later. So we are developing all these finishes, which can also inspired by the research that we were doing, but in the context of a modern building. These are images of the canteen again. This was the building structure. And recently, bamboo was recognized as a structural building material thanks to UNOPS. And after doing the rammed earth work, we kind of stopped with working with activism and awareness generation. And we find that taking this backseat has also given us breathing space to be more creative and doing the fun stuff, that we enjoy doing as architects. And actually this activism work is happening in the background, and it's in tandem. You can't have getting these regulatory bodies to approve of anything without proof of concept, and vice versa. So these things are happening in tandem, and luckily we are taking a back seat with the bamboo at least. And this is another recent project where we're doing a Goomba. So it's like a Buddhist monastery, and we've also used similar methods, but we prefabricated a lot of the stuff this time, and we're trying to see how scale would work or speed would work, but with the same material and the language. This is so fun. Our team also enjoyed it. So when we do these projects, I don't like to use the word community, because we work with people who are craftspeople, and so I like to use the word tribe, because we choose each other, so yeah, this was a really fun collaboration. And we just kept going, we just kept pushing the idea and the boundaries of what this new language would mean. And it's also interesting because it looks very Gothic and also Islamic, but the structure is a Buddhist monastery, So also playing on these ideas of shapes and geometries, what they could mean culturally or in religion. This is the finish inside. And in this project we also... So yeah, we always want to push the boundary, and blurring this boundary between art and architecture, and we try really hard to fight for the right to continue to be creative and not just be bogged down by policy or things like that. No worries. This is the space when, they started to interact with it, and they're also fascinated. This is the young monks who get to study there in monk school, and it was interesting to see how they were interacting with the space. So in this project, we used a ferrocement shell because this place gets a lot of rain. And this was their dormitory, which is again, we wanted the inside to be like, at least the ceiling should be something dreamy. So here we did this bamboo arch, and it was a structural arch. And this is the insides of the meditation hall. This is the crux of the project, and it was very inspired by their mandala art and their sacred geometry, and we had some interesting interactions with them about this design. So yeah, can we jump to the last few pictures that I sent you? So this is just some images from my work, which is much more smaller and more effervescent, and capturing like smells and pigments and colors informed by nature that's around us, or nature that we intervene with permaculture practices, or foraging and looking at what's around us. So this was a project where we were collecting flowers and leaves for pigment making. And we try to fix it on different materials, and yeah, I think we can stop here. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Pranati. I'll request Aditya to present.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I find it very difficult to present Hunarshala's work because it's so spread out, and so here I've tried something, and a lot of pictures will be very similar to what Pranati showed, but most of them Hunarshala is not designed or engineered. It's mostly built by people, and I'll try to put forward the role Hunarshala has played in all of this. What was our role? And there'll be three parts. One is how people have been building for generations and generations. What are some problems that they might have started to face, and how we have started to work with them. So this picture that you see is one of my favorite pictures, and whenever I'm asked to talk about material, I start with it. Again, no engineers, no architects, no so-called experts were involved in doing this. But it's such fine technique. It's a Santhal community house. It's the entrance of that, and there are two brothers, I think. And there are different colors, very subtle differences that you'll see. There's a black there, but then slight gradation, and all of them have reasons. And if we pass through, we'll see, oh, very nice, pretty house. But when we start talking to people, we realize, oh, wait, everything has some kind of logic to it. Nothing is unnecessary. So that black part is actually a clay that they mix with half-burnt hay. So it's not fully burnt, not just hay, but half-burnt, crushed, mixed with soil. And they also have a fruit that they soak in water through the night and use that water. And it has amazing water repellent quality. So if you drop like you put a drop of water on it, it will float like this. It won't spread. And then later on, of course, we realized that if you half burn hay, the silica amorphizes or something, some technical term, and it kind of creates that water resistance layer. So these are the things that started happening, and just like what Praniti also said, our work also focuses a lot on documenting a lot of these things. We are not so good at presenting this documentation, but through our own practice, in the institutional memory, it starts coming in. And also amazing details. So the left one is a Muslim house near Dhanbad, and the right one, if I remember correctly, is a Yadav house in South Jharkhand. And the details, again, if you pass by, it'll be like a normal village house, but when you see the details, for example, in the left house, the top lintel part where bricks are slightly cut to become like drip course if the water comes down. And both of these houses, people said that they have lasted for at least 80 years, 80, 70, 80 years, and their great-great-grandfather had built it. Another Santhal house, and this was my first project of documentation in Hunarshala back in 2015, and I fell in love with these Santhal houses. So we were doing this project for the government where they had asked us to document how people build in villages to inform their Indira Awas Yojana, the rural housing program. And the first thing that we would do whenever we go to a village is ask the people, please show us the most beautiful house that you have, because that's what we would like to show to the government. And in this area, everyone will point us to Santhal Tola, which is where the Santhal community is. And it's like, you go there, you see houses, you won't even know that they're made of mud. It will be like snosem. So snosem was the word that they would use. And yes, it was like that. So this and everything, like I said, this is also used a lot of times across India. You have a projection at the ground to protect from the rain that they keep redoing, and the same black finish. The yellow is also the locally available soil. The top part is where they have used something called chui mitti, which has lime content, and there's a particular area in that region where they get it from. Yeah, and the other thing that we discovered is that at least at that point of time, a lot of this was the practice. This is how people would build. 80% of the people in that part, eastern part of the country, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, in rural areas, this is how they were building. In western part, Maharashtra, Gujarat, we were having such hard time even to find artisans who could do a wall. This looks like a simple wall, right? When you try it, you won't be able to do it because you need to know the soil. And these are the three different kind of soil, very simple tools that also they will make. And a lot of Adivasi communities, the tribal communities that there are, the difference is that for us, we have very specific job. Like a certain community will be doing pottery, certain community will be doing this, that. Here, the families will know most of it. And of course, there will be certain divisions, but they'll be able to build their house, they'll be able to build their tools, etc. And this is another house, another Santhal house. It's all made of cob, and you can see the additions and the changes. So the top part was first, it has country tiles, the round tiles. The extension that happened, the veranda kind of thing, it has Mangalore tiles, the flatter parts. The right hand side house that you see, the white wall, is actually a PMAY, IAY house that they've added, integrated with the existing house. And this is the inside. So similar kind of houses. So this is basically a courtyard house that largely Santhal would make. This is a Munda house which will have a core and then veranda periphery going around it. And some more pictures of the kind of house and the kind of artwork that this is what they call comb cutting. So they first put the ash on the wall, then use lime to cover it when it's dry, and before the lime dries, they use comb to get these patterns. So this is what they call comb cut. Earlier they were using branches, but now they have those plastic combs. You break it, and all the women, and this is through the rooms also, not just externally. And if you notice the roofing, they have two kinds of tiles, a flatter one and a rounder one. And this whole settlement was actually Potter community. And they were the ones who were making roof tiles for all the villages around. And this is something that we asked, why do you do it? We're like, if you have all the round tiles, you have leaves and branches and everything getting stuck, this is easier to clean. So something, like that we would keep discovering things like these. And thermally comfortable. We went there in summer, we went there in winter, we enter, and it will all in winters, it was so cozy and everything. And we have done this throughout the central India. We have covered West Bengal to Gujarat, and we found exactly similar traditional wisdom that people would have. This is from North Gujarat. This is rammed earth. This is how people would build it. This is all, I mean, no engineers or architects were there. And these are the communities that we build. So one thing that we also like to emphasize as a practice, and unfortunately Hunarshala has kind of come to be known as this material practice, but it's largely people-oriented practice. Even though unfortunately you're seeing a lot of earth work here, you'll see projects where we have used burnt brick, where we have used cement plaster, because the essence, I mean the core is never the material, it's what people or what they would prefer. And also not to look at material in isolation. So a technique it never exists in isolation. There's a bunch of people who are practicing it, have been practicing it, and these are pictures of gracias in North Gujarat. And it goes in, like building is not separate with other practices that they have. For example, all of the families will have their own mahua tree, and they know which fruit falls where, and they'll take care of that tree. And it is similar with building. And this is their building, so they'll come help each other. There's no financial transactions as such. This is a completed house. And unfortunately, this is what the government has been asking them to build. The left house is the PMAY house, and on the right hand side is what people would traditionally build. So they would, when government will come and say you have to, and the whole debate of kacha and pakka would start, that you have to have something pakka, more permanent, why are you building these temporary houses? People would build, people will take money, they will build it, but they will not use it. It will largely be used for storage, goats, animals, and they'll say even storage it's not good because the potatoes will go bad earlier than in a mud house. So they'll always have their traditional house next to it and they'll be living there. But this is more, we also, because we did this documentation throughout the central India, we also found very bad examples where we found families where people have committed suicide because of this program. Why? Because they got the subsidy, they got the first installment, then the government started putting pressure to finish it. The money that they got was not enough for the kind of need that they had. So probably they built a larger plinth, they were not able to finish it. They took loans to pay the contractor at very high rates. They could not, so whatever house they had, they lost that also. And these are the things that we documented and reported to the government, that this is how it's happening. And another story, because I got reminded of it yesterday when Vajanti was talking, this is something we had discussed a few years ago, the Birhor housing. So while documenting not just material but also the cultural practices that people have. So these are the houses of a community called Birhor. These are forest dwellers. They live right at the foothills and they go in the forest then for 2 weeks, then come back. And they have a practice where if there's a newborn coming in their family, they will just add another room, and it's a ritual. If someone dies, they'll probably take off a wall and in their memory, they'll demolish one room. Now imagine doing that with these houses, right? You can't do it. And the government, so these are the kind of houses we went of 2 or 3 kinds of houses. They will also build something like this in the forest because they said this is the safest way to build there. And the government was giving this to them. So they were adding some mud walls that they can take off as a ritual, but that just completely killed their cultural practice. And so this is how it was. I think one of the saddest place I went. They were still using earth blocks somewhere, covering the veranda so they get another room, and trying to add something. And this is the kind of settlement that were built for them. These are all relocated families. And they were never stayed like that. If you've been to a tribal village, you'll see that their houses are not like settlement like ours. They are on hilltops and they'll be separate houses, etc. So even the social fabric, and you won't see anyone smiling here. It was all depressing, etc. But there's a way that Hunarshala has tried to work with the government where you can build these kind of houses with government. This is a government paid house in North Gujarat using the same ramdirt I showed earlier. And these are the three artisans. Most of the work was done by the women behind. And this guy was largely smoking bidi and all. Uh, but he took the money, unfortunately. So, but this is a ramdirt wall built by government of Gujarat under the housing scheme with the same technology that people do, with some interventions like there were bands here and there, the roof slope was slightly better, and this is where our role would come in. So we didn't design this. We were just there for the government to sleep peacefully. Okay, these guys are there. We allowed the people to build it. We became the interpreters of what people want to the government and what government was asking to the people. So foundation, you see the stone, the plinth and everything. People never did plinth with stone there. They did it with ramdirt, and this is all ramdirt. So when they start seeing this coming up, and they would come to us because they would be scared of talking to the government, so they'll talk to us. Sir, we have not used this. Now we will not get money and all that. Can we just put stone on top? And that's what they did, and they got the subsidy also, and it was secure. And this that you're seeing is one of the ugliest houses in the community because we built it. If the people would have built it, it was much, much better. And they did it. They would come and make fun of us. You don't know how to do it. So similarly, this is from Bihar. The technology that people, both the houses that you see are the same technology, wattle and daub, but one where people have not been demotivated to do what they were doing, but they were encouraged to do that. And a lot of this happens with community engagement. We take physical models, and this is from Jharkhand. This is another village in Jharkhand where we show this, people tear off the model, show us that this is not how it happens. And this is not for us, these models are not used for us to tell them that this is how you should build. But they are largely used for us to learn how they build so that we can give it back to the government, that this is what you need to do. And yeah, and the kind of happiness we would feel when people would explain to us how they build instead of sitting there and listening to us. And they would just take the chatai off, start drawing that this is how it is done. And so material or the architecture becomes a medium for them to take control of their culture. Again, instead of someone else coming and telling that, no, this is what you're doing is inferior, what you're doing is wrong. This is the urban-like thing is what you have to do. And the urban thing is also not, it's basically the elite thing that you need to do. So we did similar, I quickly go through these. I have two now quick examples of Gujarat, the same study that we did. These are various villages we went to, documented. We divided various zones, we published this. This was done with UNDP and MORD. So government was giving just one kind of house, like what I showed earlier, to everyone. And then we documented and showed to the government that there are at least 150 kinds of houses. And if you convert them into typologies, there are probably 70. And we submitted all the 70 designs to the government that you have to approve this, and as a technical expert, government, Hunarshala is signing it. And finally they approved 47. There was a technical committee set up, and these were various typologies that were built, and this got implemented in Gujarat. We also, it was not just a design, but a lot of IC material, and a lot of this IC material was developed for the government officials, not for the people. People already knew how to build. We put up these posters in Anganwadis, etc. And always put government's name in there, PMAYG, etc. So people know that, no, this is coming from the government. And in these plans, one thing that we also did was, we knowingly didn't give the dimensions of the rooms. We just said that this is the layout, you build how you want, this is the cost that will come. And along with that, we did a lot of training. So we went to various zones, built these houses with the people, And again, the target was largely the government engineers, not the people themselves. So the government engineers suddenly, when they see, okay, these kind of experts are coming, building this, and also doing some kind of innovations like putting bands in or that, then they kind of accepted it. You can probably see me also in that top center picture, a younger version. So yeah, then we also call them back to our office, show them, because our own office is made with a lot of earth construction. And when the government engineers and as well as the masons come and they see, oh, wait, they are working in the same kind of space, it kind of, and this was very important because once the government engineers who came, who saw, who did some hands-on, when they went back, they were excited to get it done. And there were two reasons for that. First, they didn't have to enforce something, people would always anyway do it. Second, the numbers went up and the government looks at numbers, that, oh, what is the completion. So when we measured in 2 villages, there were already 150 houses being built in rammed earth under the same scheme. So they were happy. For them it was kind of win-win. Someone came and sorted it out for them. And these are the kind of pilots we made. And the board that you see, we made sure that Government of Gujarat is written there. This is a cob house, and the improvements that we keep talking about is you'll see bands. So the government was so reluctant to pass unstabilized mud construction, we had to put some things. The plinth also they would traditionally do with either stone or cob. The slope was increased, which we felt that was actually required there because otherwise the houses were leaking. And this was done in an Anganwadi complex, and this became the selfie point for people to come. And why? Because they said, oh, this is how we build our houses. It's not something, this is our technology. And that was the most important part about, and they would complain about the bands. They will tell us you're making it weak, and they were right about it because it would discontinue the monolithic nature of those walls. So one last example how we did it in another context in Nepal, because Pranati is also in. This is post-earthquake rehabilitation in right at North Nepal, China border. This was done for a bunch of nuns. And they were Tibetan nuns, and I think Nepal doesn't recognize Tibet because of China. So which means the refugees don't exist, which means they cannot help them. So this is where we got the funding and went. Earthquake zone, and they built structures with stone in that area, and all of that had fallen, and we were very confused about how to really make earthquake resistant structures there. And the answer was here in Uttarakhand. So this is a temple in Uttarakhand, and largely when people work with technologies, I think yesterday also someone mentioned it, they don't fight nature, they work with it. So this is something where they use slip foundation. So the foundation and the walls can just slip when the earthquake comes. And there are vertical timber members and horizontal timber members all around. And they would tie the thing. And this I think is 300 or 400 year old temple there, which has survived so many earthquakes. These are the internal timber ties. And similar vertical timbers. Now the village where we were working, we had to trek 4 hours. So imagine, and timber was scarce. Timber wasn't readily available. So stone was there, mud was there. So we went to our partners in Bangalore, there's Professor Jagdish and all those people. And one solution, and we could not do concrete also because the temperatures would go sub-zero first of all. So concrete doesn't work well. Second, concrete is not one material, it's 4 material. So to trek with all that up there and without any workers was a big task. So this was the solution that came in, and this is again the second way where Narshala's role comes in, where we said, okay, let us replace those timber bands with galvanized iron wires. So these kind of ties were done, and the local masons were doing it. You'll also see a hook at the end, so there will be vertical GI members also in replacement of those vertical timber members. And these were very light members, so the nuns themselves would carry it, and they were very good at trekking, so they'll be like tuck, 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 carrying everything up. So these are the vertical members that would come, and then this would be plastered. nuns would themselves work on these. And we didn't have electricity, printers, etc. So no laptops, no drawings. We didn't have model making materials. So these cartons are where they would get Maggie and all kind of things. So we would use that to make models. Uh, then, yeah. And these were our working drawings. So you see the hill with the sun, that is east. So, and the measurements were like this, 12 feet, 24 feet, yeah, fine. And this house belongs to Sultim Dolma, number 9. So that's all. And we would go there and we'll just show this, you have to do this. And people will build it, they'll do their own adjustments, details, etc. And, okay, this is the last story. So, you see there's a projection at the end, at the gable wall. So, we tried to be designers here. So we said, okay, you only give two-way roofs and your gables are very weak. They also get a lot of rain. And as architects and designers, we are taught, right? Okay, you have to put projections and everything. So we insisted a lot that you have to go for it. And they were just saying no. They were like, no, this is not what we want to do. So then we have one of the founders, Mahavir Bhai, is very smart with working with communities. He said, okay, let's build one house and show to these guys how helpful these are. So they decided, okay, there's one old nun, she won't be able to build. So why don't you guys just build her house? So we built it and we showed that, see, this is so nice. It's, it protects your window, etc. And so what do you think? So these guys were still like, they started discussing and everything. And then Mahavir Bhai said, okay, now they must be very convinced. And he asked, so now tell me, how many of you would like to build this? And there were 0 hands raised. And why? The reason was because this represented a different community. This represented a Nevari form. They were not Nevari. They wanted a distinct cultural identity. So we didn't do it then finally. I mean, we were no one to force it also. So finally, these were the houses that were built without the gable. But one thing that they agreed is that they went for a gable roof which is lighter instead of stone. In case of earthquake, that becomes very dangerous. So these were 100, 150 houses built, and all this work that we've done with people, it will end with a lot of celebration. So a lot of drinks were served, dances, singing, etc. And this has been common throughout, not just this work, but throughout India. Whenever something finishes, people find joys in it and celebrate it. So that's basically Hunarshala's role been, working with people, technologies, where subtle, changes here and there that we find. So yeah, thank you.
No, thank you very much, Aditya Pranati. It was very interesting from all the last panels to this panel. It's you're scaling down to a small detail where actually community is helping you to design your gable. So from this first panel today, where we are discussing about the big policies making, to the end detail like a gable that is also been taught to an architect from the community, and it's a very interesting bandwidth of the whole idea of architecture. Otherwise, you can say. I have a very in case of Aditya, you very well put how Hunarshala is not designing, not even a facilitating, but just maybe hinting towards something and then understanding it. What is it that is happening and learning in the whole process more than teaching in the case. In the Pranati, I think you said that, very interestingly said that you don't want to call it as a community but a tribe, because you choose the kind of a team with whom you would work, or also they choose you how they would work into. I'm interested in what is this process, where how do you define, how do you come to this understanding, to whom you would choose and how do you choose, and then in turns how this whole thing of an interaction changes in terms of a technology design, and hence all the process that follows in the course. And from Aditya, I would like to know that when you are saying that you showed the documentation of these some 100 odds houses that you have done in the Gujarat. You learned so many things in that. When you take successive projects with the government, without the government, as the whole thing, how do you take this whole knowledge and try to convince somebody with that? Because as you said, there is a community difference, cultural difference. One detail of the one community is not accepted by the another community as a cultural basis, but it might be required in terms of its climatic and all this, what you're saying, earthquake thing and all the construction technology. How do you maneuver that thing? Because that is where actually your practice as a Hunarshala becomes very important, because these all community might not know these cross connections that are happening within their old construction technology. If you see it from the West Bengal to Gujarat, the whole section of it, it's hundreds of details and hundreds of things. Only with the means we don't want to I don't want to categorize as a material, but just to say ki only earth has a practice and then so many varieties into it. How do you cross connect these things to make sure that it is improvising in a certain way, culturally also, technologically also? So these two things I would like to know in more detail, because you understand, we saw a lot of projects as the things, but the whole idea of this making it together, it involves a lot, depends upon the process. And one process is that from where you get involved into the thing and start building on the site, but another process is that you have all of this documentation or a wisdom or understanding of this, which is the process, and then you try to come through that. So how do you connect these two things within your projects? That is the one thing I would like to start with. Yeah.
Hello. What I meant was that we don't specifically work with a community, like let's say a Chipang community who are known for their weaving, for example. We've tried that, but what happens is sometimes the neighboring community would be more interested in learning and innovating. Like learning and practicing is one thing, but we're very keen on innovating with these traditional techniques. So what happens is they would say, oh, I know this person from the next village, from another community. And so in that way, that is the process of selection, and it's not mandated by anything, just by the technique itself. So what we do is we have like open, not studio, but we are building in the open, and people see it, like our neighbors see it, our village, the village next door sees it. So they kind of come and have conversations like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it in this new way? And in that conversation, we kind of recognize that, you have the skill, and they recognize that we have a certain skill. So that sort of exchange and selection happens naturally, I would say, just by demonstration and being open with the whole building technique.
Okay, so a very interesting question, and so the first part is, so the housing program that we showed for the Gujarat thing, there's so many, knowledge that got documented, etc. The most important thing that it did was change the central government policy, and very minor change that did a lot of wonder, which was that earlier the Indira Awas Yojana was, it mandated pakka houses to be built. They changed the definition of pakka. So they made it, they removed burn brick, cement, etc. They said any house that will last for 30 years will be considered as pakka. And that was the main impact that it had. And the other impact that it had was, of course, what the next part that you asked, that we became a medium of exchange between different areas. like if some community is doing something in Madhya Pradesh, we could share that with some families in Gujarat and see what, if there can be something, a cross learning or something can happen. For example, recently in eastern Madhya Pradesh, we were working with in a village very near to Patangad called Limha. There's one community, Baiga community, that builds the actual organic houses. They are facing a lot of problem because now they are not able to predict the rainfall. So earlier they would use sun-dried bricks, but now they can't, because if they lay it out and if it rains, all of it goes to waste. So now what the innovation or the change that they have got is now they are building the roof first and then building the blocks under the roof, which kind of changes the structural system. Now we went there, we could reach there, we could talk about it. Now if we come to Gujarat and say, oh wait, North Gujarat also the rainfall pattern is changing, let's share if they can, learn something. So that is another thing. And the third thing that this does is it democratizes the access to information. People were able to choose something instead of something being given to them, which is very empowering. They were able to choose, oh, this is the kind of house, this is like all of us buy our own clothes, or someone we like buy our clothes, and no one is giving us one shirt, all of us just one shirt to wear, right? So that empowers people a lot, and this is what this documentation of 100, 150 villages does for people. And it kind of opens up the imagination of the government, who might, many of them would have never visited many of these, and even if they visit, it's from outside. So that, and if we look at the practicality of it, like you asked, what if something is important in a house and people don't want it, what do you do? So we largely work with a lot of dialogue. We call it something, we create these criteria that these are negotiables, these are non-negotiables. See, if you want to have proper house, this is something that you'll have to follow, otherwise it will have problems. So that is something that has been successful, and these non-negotiable and negotiable is also not something that we develop, we discuss with them, and it comes out from them. So the masons will say, nah, you're saying it right, maybe this is something, we were being lazy, let's do it. So that's how the dialogue happens, and our role has largely been to, as mediator, somewhere like, I think Pankaj was saying it, it's not top down, it's not bottom up, but somewhere in between, we try to engage both together.
Before I go to my question also, I just want to extend one of his questions. When you showed that you presented typologies which were across Gujarat. But when this cross-learning or cross-sharing between many regions or states happen, like is there a you can say a way of seeing things in a homogenized manner? Because like largely the government will have this swiping everything, like for example, even if they accept mud as a material, it will start homogenizing the way that the government sees it and the way the delivery happens in the communities. Or so is there a fear of this really taking over? Or because I think that like that's, and what you said, ki, as facilitators, I would rather say you're translators, because they don't understand each other languages. The one is a very technocratic one and the other is like coming from their way of life, and they don't have ways to talk to each other. So being a translator, I mean, then there is a fear of, if they start misreading by accepting a few things. So and it has an impact, like with the weather patterns changing, it might require a certain diversity in terms of their details and materials. So I mean, just to extend that question, if there is any observation on it.
Yeah. So this mic gives a nice pause so I can think for 2 seconds. That's a valid question, but I think that fear, we never had that fear, also because I think that fear comes from a position of romanticizing a lot of things. And these people should only do this, these people should only do this. But we are no one to decide that. It's for them to decide, and we should have trust in their ability to choose you know, so that even if they choose homogenization later on, it's their call, not ours. But how that should be done, if they need our help, they ask us, we should be there to assist, because of course I mean, I keep talking about architects not working as architects, but it doesn't mean that we forget the skills we have. We're still there with those skills, and that's our place. So I don't think we've ever had fears. We have done so many mixing and matching and everything, like calling people from random places, telling them something else, but they are wise enough to choose or not choose. So I don't think that fear is there.
The other thing which came from both of your practices is the need for validation. I mean, the happiness that came with bamboo being accepted, or maybe the construction materials of mud or rammed earth being accepted. I mean, if we see from that lens of okay, if it's validated now, it can be widely used, or it can be without a fear of the government not recognizing it, or it can be subsidized. I mean, there will be a lot of benefits will come from that. But this validation, which is also the narrative from the urban space, or you can say the urban thinking, or the colonial way of thinking about validation, it naturally pushes these everyday. Why I'm saying, because it's the built form, the material, and all these experiments are connected to their way of life. And in the city, it's quite different. I mean, it's disconnected. We don't build our own things. I mean, their houses are an extension of their own everyday life. So, doesn't that really push them in this space of the margins that we were just discussing, and margins in terms of margins in the construction industry? I mean, I'm just trying to place it in, say, a certain industrial, because it comes from that, and I think it's only because of that validation I'm referring to a construction industry coming here and trying to see this. I mean, what kind of landscapes have this kind of generated within? I mean, or has it made any change, or has it, like, I mean, how are people really responding to these factors?
I think it's artisanal. It's not industrial, and I hope it never becomes industrial, because the whole concept is that you're using a local material and you're spending time getting to know the material. It's not that there is no recipe for it. And I think maybe he would agree that it's so specific to a context, and it's not that I am the person who knows it, or the next architect knows it, but it requires whoever is building, and it has the freedom of owner driven construction, whether they are from the community and know the technique or not. It requires time, and I feel like that makes it artisanal. So whether it's given the legality and validation, I think it will still be a slow process, and there's a beauty to it, that it can be iterated and changed and modified in the slowness. So I am very romantic about it openly. So this is my take on it.
So about validation, I think I don't think a lot of these practices need validation. The government needs validation so that they are comfortable that this can be done, and that's where we are there. And a lot of people like us who do this for the government. Okay, we just show them what everyone else is doing, and they accept it. Okay, Hunarshala has tested, or Mrinmai has tested, all these, so many practices they have tested, and it's fine. So that's where, and then if they say, no, they have to change something, this is not following the code, there's no code for rammed earth, then we sit with them and make the code also. And we have, I mean, Hunarshala has done, a lot of people have done with bamboo also, etc. So that validation is largely a requirement for the government. Otherwise, people have been building for that so long, and that's where, I mean, we understand that, and so we do that. And the other part about, I think, even though both of us showed kind of a smaller scale, I think the similar frameworks are applicable at larger scale also, where people choose what to do. And when we are talking at urban scale planning, we are also working at participatory planning at urban scale, similar methodologies. It's just that there's a different mode to it. And I think we in India, at least in South Asia, smaller cities, a lot of construction is still self-built. Maybe not in the bigger cities, but smaller cities, yes. And this is all driven by the smaller contractors, smaller masons. And we have worked with them also. So, especially in Kutch post-earthquake. And there's so many innovative ways that they have not earth-based maybe, something, like I said, we are not focused on the earth itself. And the 47 typologies that were approved for Gujarat also, I think only 1/3 of them are earth-based. The rest are, stone made because there's stone available, there's something available. So that's there. But what is the most appropriate that people would want to build? And we'll just do that. So, and when it is not self-built, of course, then you have other complexities of housing, etc. coming in. But we have worked in that space also, and again the framework has largely been the same, giving people a choice of what they would want. So that's the basic.
Also, one thing we always forget, maybe, because for us, it is not that we start thinking of building or engaging with materials, whatever they may be, with an intent of doing it for yourself. And I think it changes quite a lot what you framed in the start, the roti kapda makan. Like you make your own roti, you choose your own clothes, or you don't maybe make your own clothes, and you don't make your own living. I mean, especially in the cities. But I think it changes drastically, which binds a certain community, and there's a knowledge structure which is set. And in the interest that I have is to also cook buildings, or to think of it as an act of cooking, or there are recipes, but there are also they are local knowledge. It's like me sharing my recipe of a certain food item with him, and he sharing, and there's a whole communities which happens. I mean that's so, and I think there is a similar structure over here now. So in what ways I would just kind of place it in relationship with material experiments, not with its technicalities or the science behind it. I mean, it's wrong to call it, wrong to separate it. But their way of life and this, say, the recipe of making a build form, how is it integrated in their, say, daily life seasonally, or maybe with festivals, or maybe with other, because I think like the Mahua example you gave, or maybe there are many other things which come from the burning of the hay, which is in a certain season, and then it kind of has its own sort of cycle. So what are these cycles that really make that community or make their way of life, and how is it making it in certain ways also, like you might have faced it like being resilient to change, or being open to accept, and how does that shape? So I mean, in a cyclical form, like they have to be really open to really do that. So how do they exchange knowledge within each other, and also with others who come to their place? Or I mean, in that sense, like how do you translate that? So I'm just kind of curious to know these in detail, and I think after this question maybe we can open to the audiences as well.
So while I mean, a lot of these pictures that all of us saw, there is very strong seasonality to it, like you also mentioned, and what Pranti was also saying. And we have been talking about pace. It's a very different pace that is in sync with nature, not like us. But we are in a world which is fast changing, and we have felt through the community a need of certain changes, because a lot of these seasonalities they're finding very hard to follow. First of all, of course, weather changing patterns are very recent, but even before that, the lifestyle, the market has changed. The market has gone deep into a lot of these places. I'll give a very quick example from Bihar, and that also for bamboo. So traditionally, when they would use bamboo, They would harvest it in no moon night, in monsoons, make bundles of it, and put it in the river, and wait for the monsoon to get over, take it out, and the bamboo is seasoned, and you use it. Because on no moon night, there's least sap movement, because least amount of natural light, uh, least amount of insects that might go and nest inside the bamboo, whose eggs will later on damage the bamboo. And monsoons will have very heavy flow in the river. So that will clean all the sap. Now when we were working in Bihar, post-flood, we didn't have 6 months to cure the bamboo. So we had to do some kind of innovation. And that's where these exchange happened. Okay, so then the technical way of doing it is putting it in borax, boric acid, curing it. But in the villages we were working, it was not possible for us to have such centralized mechanism. So we had to arrive at something which was in between. So there was innovation done with a pump and everything, and the machine could be carried on a cycle, and they would charge 1 rupee per bamboo, and you could treat so many bamboos in a day. And the test was also very innovative, which was put in the guideline, that if on the other side of the bamboo, when you're treating, on the other side, if flies stop sitting, that means your bamboo is treated. And it's there in the guideline that this is the test that the bamboo, because we said that, okay, bamboo has to be treated, and they're saying, no, but that's traditional way of treating it is keeping it in this acid solution. How do you know if the bamboo is treated with your jugaad? So, and they accept, we said that when the sap is coming out of the bamboo, flies will be there around it. And once the acid starts coming out, no insects will be around there. And that was the test. It was put there, government said, okay, the mistris will check this and certify. So that's how the interpretation that happened. Okay, there's another technique, centralized, there's another way how people do it, but there's somewhere in between that would have only happened if this transaction between the two knowledge system happened. So yeah, that's how it happens.
Yeah, and just adding to that, that's the boucherie treatment for bamboo. And like the scale that we work in is slightly different. So we work with farmers who've used this bamboo corridor to, safeguard their farms. So we would have a lot of bamboo at one go. So we have set up a different kind of system where we treat it in this chamber that we designed, and it's already there and in stock for when it's next needed. And it also works in our favor because everybody on our team, including us, are farmers, gardeners, I like to call. And in monsoon, it's 1 month we don't work. We just don't work. So we prepare for it ahead of time, whether it's with bamboo, whether it's with, whatever earthwork needs to be done. And in some cases, like the intervention that he said, we've had to put up a secondary roof and work under it when the client is not willing to give that 1 month break, So it is very seasonal and cyclical, but we come up with our own jugaad, like he says. So yeah.
Yeah, we have questions. We have a lot of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shall we take it together and then? Yeah, yeah. So let's start with Indraneel and then Nidhi and Richa and then Swastik. Yeah, and then last we will end with you. Oh yeah, we can start with the screen, the Zoom. Let's take a question. Mona, if you did you raise your hand? No. Okay, so let's start with Indraneel.
Hello. Hi. So I'm a third year student here at C, and for our second year settlement studies, where we we have a trip where we go to different areas in India, and we look at the settlements that are happening, the material, the sort of how the community lives there. So what we discovered in Sundarbans, where we went in the second year, was that similar things were sort of happening, that the RCC houses were being built, but they were sort of not being used as primary inhabitations, and they were used primarily as a bedroom or a storage area. But they were, but most of the life that was happening inside the house was outside those, concrete walls, where there were open kitchens and sort of mud houses that were there outside. So I wanted to ask you about um, what, like, about the kind of interactions that you have had with women and what kind of agency were they providing, because um, I observed that the RCC houses that were being built were not only for protection and all of these physical things, but it was a sort of vanity for the men, because they were not using these houses throughout the day. Throughout the day, they were using it at night, and because they would go out for work. So because these RCC houses, they become like a sort of social anchor for men. Um, be, through these, because you were working with communities and you were also working with women, I wanted to ask about what kind of insights and what kind of, how were the women sort of bringing in what they knew to be their knowledge. Uh, yeah.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. So I can personally relate to all your works because I worked in the similar kind of practice during my internship with Design Chhatra, and they have this similar kind of material palette, like using of bamboo, mud plaster, and minimizing the use of steel and concrete, and also the local techniques they use for building the housing for construction. So this particular sustainable forms come from a specific type, or like a specific context. Like in this case, there was this village context for which these sustainable forms are designed. So I was just thinking, what would be the possibilities of creating such sustainable forms in the urban context? Like, how can these sustainable forms respond in the middle of this mid-rise residential in the urban context? Yeah.
Can you pass the mic to her? Or?
Hello. Yeah. So firstly, thank you for the presentations. It actually gave us a glimpse on how, not only material experiments, but communities and tribes also play an important role in shaping all of this. So actually the photographs of the Santhal houses that you showed us actually took me to my master's studies, where we actually worked with these Santhal community and their houses. And an interesting story about it was that when we actually talked to the kids of the village and we told them कि चलो हमें दिखाओ तुम्हारे गांव में सबसे खूबसूरत घर कौन सा है, they actually took us to this RCC house which was with all of these colors, pink, purple and green, and all of these colors actually brought from the cities. And the way that now they look at their own houses has changed drastically. So I mean, there is this gap that, sort of, pushes you through this threshold of this idea of poverty and backwardness, because now using this idea of these pigments and natural forms that you all were talking about, so that is somewhere considered to be like a threshold of how poverty or backwardness is seen within these villages. So firstly, how is this, how do practices like, Abari or Hunarshala cater to these questions? And secondly, I mean, a question similar to what even Indrini asked. So there are these traditional notions of house making or building a house that these communities or tribes already have. So have you come across such any practices? Like for example, the houses that I studied had this very typical idea that the walls should be built by women and the roof has to be built by men. and the women are not allowed to touch the roofs or anything like that. So were there any specific traditions that were being followed in the practices that you have seen through your practice? And how is this idea of then the gendered spaces and creating these gendered techniques evolved when practices like yours come together?
It's not exactly a question, but just sort of sharing a thought. Also coming from what I've sometimes heard from Prasad and Rupali in terms of how memory plays a role in building. Connected also to what Dushant was talking about, exchanging recipes and so on and so forth. So both from a pedagogical point of view, but also from a way of looking at how knowledge passes also from generation to generation and so on and so forth. So for example, where I take the example of cooking, or I take the example of working on the field, or building even a road or a railroad, everything sort of comes with certain songs and rituals and so on and so forth. So just sort of, and since there are archivists in the room and there are these things, so I was just wondering if any of you have or if you know of, it's just an interesting thing for me. It's not like I'm in these practices, but it's an interesting thing for me if people have dug deeper into these knowledge systems and found those the songs and so on and so forth. Like for example, it's just a very random thought, but when I see 47 typologies, I'm seeing actually a YouTube playlist. It's that kind of a thought. Of course that's absurd, but you know what I mean, that it transfers in different ways as compared to the rectangularity of a guide or a code or a law, or that kind of a thing. So I'm just wondering.
Shall we come to you later, or yeah? Okay. So can we take 2 minutes because we are also having a time. So.
So 2 minutes is very difficult. Okay, I'll start with the Sundarban, and I think most of these questions are kind of connected. Yeah. In Sundarban, because you talked about men wanting concrete houses and everything, so we were also there, and we found it just not men, it's women also want that. Why? Because men don't do repair of the earth houses. It's women who have to go and do leapen and plaster, and they're fed up of it. They're like, we have to do all the repair work, and these men just come and sleep, etc. Why don't you build something? And we were going, and just like how we do, we were romanticizing, array, you have nice wood, nice clay soil, you can do this and that. And we're like, this is all bullshit. You give us pakka houses, you use brick, get brick from Calcutta, get it, do it. So that, again, like I was saying, we don't have to romanticize this. But concrete houses have inherent issues there. And when we start talking about it, it starts coming up. So any saline environment, steel is going to, the life for concrete houses 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, it goes bad. So then when we start this dialogue, we start this conversation, new things will start coming up. So the other thing, because you mentioned Sundarban, it kind of reminded me of the exchange question that you asked. And there's an island called Goshaba there. It's a wonderful example of how technical exchange happened between two communities. Shallow domes, which were being done in North India, now people there are doing it because it doesn't need steel. And steel doesn't survive in saline environment. So they are now doing what they think is pakka without using steel in compressive structure, and that exchange happened. And the other exchange that they did was with Bihar artisans. So they would make thatch roof. But now they have tin sheets available, but tin sheets are very noisy, very hot. So now they are doing thatch under the tin. So instead of, we would think of tin and then thatch, right? But they are doing it under it because Bihar artisans would do it, and they said, you do it like this, it's better. And we saw that it was organically happening all over the island. People are just building, and there are a bunch of artisans who have learnt it and doing it. So that can be a good alternative. So they will accept it also, and we will also not be romanticizing what we are doing. Then this shallow dome is an example of urban. Someone asked about the applications in urban. So again, not romanticizing. If we try to force cob in Bombay, not going to happen. But if you have some innovative, like in Bardhaman near Calcutta, there's this one person who has done some 60 shallow domes in a factory instead of the RCC slabs. So imagine the amount of steel that has been saved there. So that is also sustainability, I think, right? I mean, in those definitions, which I don't agree, but yeah. Lime also has a lot of application in places like here. And the other thing that we have to respect is aspirations of people. We cannot go and, like I said earlier, we cannot go and tell them, Santhal people, to stay in Santhali houses. No, it's a different world now. What we have in control is we'll document that. We'll keep it, like we were talking about archiving and everything. That's there in Hunarshala office, that 10 years ago people in 20 villages in Jharkhand built like this. So that's there. And the other thing we also discovered is the proximity with the highway. And highway is a symbol of market. So the closer village is with highway, the more aspirations they have to go to, because they start seeing their way of living as inferior, which is wrong, because their way is much more superior. And that's when the Gujarat thing happened, and they saw that the government and all these experts are building with mud, and no one was building with mud. So suddenly they start feeling proud about it. We tried that in Jharkhand also, but I think they are doing it in a they are allowing people to build how they want to, which is good actually. I mean, if we force mud also, that also is bad. It's not about, one technology. It's about allowing people to choose. If they choose something which is more urban, let us talk to them how to do that better for that. So a lot of times, because they are not used to concrete, they use it like wood. So they'll put a beam on top, another beam instead of joining and everything. So why not let's talk about that. So we don't have to force what they're doing, but something that is more suitable now. And these practices like roof by men, it's throughout central India I talked about, that men will be doing the roof, finishes, wall, the soil work will be, so timber, tile putting, everything. And they'll also be repairing it every season. Before monsoon, after monsoon, they'll go up, set everything together. And very quickly about the songs and everything, all these communities have songs. Unfortunately, we have not documented. And now probably a lot of them must be lost also. We try to document, like in Ramdirth, we documented their songs, poems, and like the nunnery, that for nuns, the first song that they sing is of forgiveness. When they're digging the foundation, they ask for forgiveness because they're displacing a lot of microbial life. And then plinth, they will have something else, and then roof something else, and they'll be singing and all that. So it's not so exploitative like we see in everyday life. But we have not documented. That's the problem, because we are so focused on action that we see that, but we don't have enough space to document that.
I just had a small video, but I don't know. I don't want to take up your time. And the intervention that I was part of when I was talking to these bamboo farmers, who are mostly women, they are the reason we have the material to begin with. They have these concrete houses, but they want us, after looking at all this mud construction, they're like, oh, we can't undo this and rebuild. But the small intervention that we helped them help facilitate was having just plaster, or like just the pigment of the clay on the surface, because it's experiential. When you have clay on the surface, you feel cooler. So those little interventions are also like important, if not just the whole structure, maybe impossible, right? So yeah.
Okay.
Can I quickly add two more things very quickly? One thing was, again, romanticizing mud and everything. A lot of times people, it's not just aspiration, it's also because weddings won't happen if you have a mud house, right? So why? Because the repair work, why would I send my daughter to someone? And that's how it is. The Adivasi families still follow it because they have a very different social structure, etc. But our role largely becomes in helping with these things, what Praniti said, to reduce the maintenance. How do we reduce that? And second thing is that as a practice, we have to live with contradictions. the same contradictions, right?
That's Ramdat in Bhutan. So it's all women, they do it, you know. And that's the scale of the formwork. That's what enables women to do it. So these practices are there. It's just that, you know, it's fading quickly.
All right. Thank you so much. And also, thank you for taking us through these landscapes of materials and people who really integrate living and being in that place. And also, it makes us think of our choices, you know, having BTS in our playlist and, you know, our ways of living. So, yeah, I would also request Rupali to do the closing remarks and then we end.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'll close this, but just want to say a couple of things about this panel. I think what was, really nice in this panel also is that in some ways, Pranati brought back this idea of beauty, and in the sense of thinking of, contemporary practices and this idea of scaling up. Sometimes we miss out on that aspect because then it lands up becoming standardized in many ways, because standardization becomes the way of scaling up as well. So I think thanks so much for reminding us of beauty. And Aditya, I think this whole idea of material practice, I think what is really nice about Hunarshala's practice, and we deliberately put material practice was not closing, but again using the full spectrum of the word material itself. Because it is about materiality in the sense of material conditions, ideas of ground, the idea of people's practices are all material practices. So it's not the abstract space of the plan, but it's the material conditions on ground that you're working with. So, you've done full service to that, and I thank you for that. And of course, I have several questions, and I'll come back to you about the idea of the contemporary, because the fifth year students are here right now. They're doing a course on contemporary architecture, and all of this is really this question of what is contemporary architecture today. And the last 2 days have opened up several questions of what it means to think of the contemporary, because we use the word vernacular and it's terrible. It's like it just doesn't do service to how we are living today, and also the questions of the future. So several questions about, some of the things that have come up here. What happens to value chains, because cement and concrete have entered every single, right from Sundarbans to other places. They've made their way in. But what happens if you want to scale up? How do you kind of work with new kinds of value chains? The idea of gender that has been brought in here. Invariably you see that when a contractor comes in is a male contractor, and it just also completely changes the logics of spaces in many of these places. So how do you kind of bring back the idea of women in workforces, where you may not be making your own house because you're too busy, but that actually becomes a job, to do. And so in some ways mainstreaming some of these conditions, really kind of talking about the future, aspirations, all of that, not romanticizing a past. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in really kind of thinking of the contemporary. And I think the last 2 days have really brought up many, many questions for us to think with and think through. So thank you so much. I'm going to just end with a lot of thank yous. Thank you, SAT, for this really facilitating this gathering of really contemporary thinkers. So thank you, Mona, Sahil, Fabia. Thank you, Vaijanti and Tao, who's not here. But really kind of thank you for curating this. And thank you for all the faculty members at C, the moderators, and Simpreet, who's been part of the moderation, and again, part of this whole, he's the co-conspirator in all of this. The other faculty members who have moderated the session, including Prasad Khanolkar, the other Prasad Shetty, Rohit, Vastavikta, Richa, Apurva, Dipti, Milind, Dushant, our great people who've been managing this for the last 2 days very, very patiently. Udayan, Nihar, Yuvraj, Dipti, who is the, she's, if I would have a material metaphor for this, she's the keystone of our arch, which would collapse if we didn't have her in this entire endeavor. And thanks to all the students who have made it. Tomorrow is their review for their thesis. So those who haven't come, I'm sure you'll be seeing this on Zoom. And again, of course, the rest of the photography team, the sound team here, the staff at C, who has always been the backbone, because without that, these kind of gatherings are not possible. So thank you so much. I'm just going to give the mic to Mona to say a little bit, and Vaijanti to sum up from her own kind of ways of thinking and what she thought about the last 2 days, 3 days. So, Mona, do you want to say a line or two?
Tell her she's on mute.
Mona, you're on mute. Still,
Okay.
yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So I would like to start by thanking SIA for hosting the Architecture Otherwise and its roundtable series over the past 2 days. I also extend a warm thank to the whole SIA team for welcoming us, but also a special appreciation to Ripali and Vigenti for conceiving the structure of this event and shaping the focus of these various discussion points. To me, it was really truly refreshing to see such a strong engagement in India with this idea of architecture otherwise across different kind of actors at various levels of formality, scale, pace, impact, continuity, and connection with academia and the public sector. I think that a forum such as this one is, in my opinion, very much needed, not only to share what each of you has discovered and learned through your respective practices. Ideally, I think follow-up sessions of such format would help ensure that this collective knowledge continues to be shared among more broadly, actually, and to be widely recognized as very valuable for the field of architecture and urbanism, but also for various social sciences, as well as for obviously academia and public authorities. So some of you, I will end up saying that some of you will be participants in the next edition, but I hope that we can continue this conversation with many of you during our upcoming set of 3 public events, but also find ways for your practices to be further shared with our Sharjah Architecture Triennial team, especially where they align with our program. Thank you very much. Many thanks.
For me, I mean, thank you, first of all, to Rupali for being a fellow traveler, co-conspirator, all kinds of things. This would not have been possible. And of course, Deepti, I mean, incredible. I seriously hope you're getting a course release for doing this. But, and also to Mona, Sahil, Fabia, and the entire SAT team for, I wish you were all here in person. And, you know, because we have, thanks to Rupali and also Sahil, who's been part of this world, you know, put together a group of such incredible thinkers. And I want to pick up on Rupali's comment about the contemporary, which I think is very important to remember, that contemporary is really something that you distinguish from the modern or the modernist, which, you know, I think in all our practices we've been trying to get away somehow from those kinds of very the baggage that comes with the requirements for living in a certain way that have been imposed through various colonial structures and various ways of thinking that have been imposed on us. And even the question of aesthetics, yes, thank you for bringing beauty back, but I think aesthetics in a sense is about experience as well, in a much more about sensory experience, about knowledge that comes through, that is extremely material in its basis. And I think this is what this conversation has galvanized, whether at the level of the kind of very, complex and chaotic planning of a city like Mumbai, or at the level of the kinds of structures that you both talked about. And Saumini, I'd like to a special shout out. You were the very first presenter, and the poem that you read out at the end of your talk really remained with me, that architecture is in us and we are architecture. Because I came to this forum thinking about the fact that architecture is everywhere. In fact, it's embedded and it's a stage for life to happen, but oftentimes it's disembedded when we professionalize it. That was the opening kind of thought. And as someone who is not an architect, for me it was always strange to think of architecture in that way. I knew there's always something architecture plus or architecture and, but why should it, So your words reminded me that yes, it is, because everything, the materials that we use to build, they impact our body. The way we organize our spaces impacts everything about our society, and it, and the rituals and the songs and the cultures. Again, the idea of the contemporary is that those cultures, those so-called vernacular or traditions, are constantly changing. And I've learned so much from the past 2 days, and as Mona has said, I really hope this conversation moves forward in some form, either through some kind of media or some other ways, that it becomes part of the public programming of SAT03, because given the focus of the institution, its interest in these regional conversations, I think making something, taking this forward would be, I guess, our next steps. And of course, Rupali, I'll be very grateful to keep on this journey with you. Thank you.
Given such wonderful presentations in the last 2 days, I'm not saying everybody's names, but you know who they all are. And again, thank you to my 2 other co-conspirators here, Gauri, Neera, who've been here, and Pankaj, who was the participant. Pankaj, oh yeah, he is here. Pankaj, who also participated, he was also the participant here. So thank you so much, and we will, I think, continue the conversation. Yeah, so that you all are going to Govandi now. And we are going to, the next session, actually the session doesn't end. The next part of this is in Govandi, where everyone is going to participate in the Govandi Arts Festival, where Sandhya and Natasha are going to be there. And also thanks Prasad for doing the walk on the 8th. With all the participants, because I think that is an important, the walk is actually for us from C, a very important part of a gathering like this, because we believe you cannot be sitting in a white cube like this discussing. You really need to embed yourself in the city, in the field, in the material conditions of the spaces that we're thinking of, which is why the walk was a very important part of this 3-day gathering.